Hey everyone, thank you for joining me for another YouTube video. You've caught me in my storage room that I'm probably going to renovate and turn into an office or something else, who knows. But right now, it is what it is, and I decided to make a quick video. So, thank you for joining me for that. And feel free to leave your thoughts on this, any comments as far as what you want to see in regards to this topic down below. I think it'd be interesting to talk about this. But I have three ideas, and this may be a little bit too soon, right? Because we know that the next Zelda is right around the corner, with Echoes of Wisdom coming out next week. But after that, the next big Zelda is probably going to be a few years. It's probably going to be a Switch 2 system seller, maybe 5 years. I don't know. It depends on how quickly they get it done. But usually we're talking, you know, like if you look at Breath of the Wild technically being a Wii U game, that's ported to Switch, we've gotten one on the Wii U and one on the Switch. And Echoes of Wisdom, of course, now being the second Zelda. But outside of that, if we get a big, like, 3D Grand Adventure kind of Zelda in the vein of what we've gotten with Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, probably going to be a while until we get another Switch Zelda game. So, with that in mind, I figured, hey, let's have a little bit of fun and talk about some ideas for future Zelda games. Now, these are just ideas. I might even throw a fourth one out there just for the heck of it. But these are just ideas that I was kind of mulling over, like, hey, what would the next one look like? And I've sort of been inspired lately by some games that I've been playing, and just kind of been mulling it over in my head. And it's no big deal really, because at the end of the day, Nintendo's going to do whatever it is they're going to do, and these ideas might be something that they can't even really work with, considering the fact that when it comes to Zelda, they kind of just keep that high fantasy setting and don't really stray too much outside of it. But hear me out on some of these ideas, and let's see if maybe they can work, or just tell me what you think about them. Maybe they're just crazy ideas that aren't going to work after all. The first idea, just real simple. I know that Skyward Sword is technically the earliest in the timeline, but I would like to see a prequel to Skyward Sword, because Skyward Sword mentions, and this is probably why it's not going to happen, because it mentions the events, so we already know what happens, right? But that doesn't mean anything, because hey, we were told about the events of Ocarina of Time in Wind Waker, and that didn't prevent us from having a game. And we knew we were going to end up selling Ganon, because we always seal Ganondorf or something like that. That didn't stop us from having a game. But the reason why I think it'd be interesting is just to have a game where we sort of see the goddess. Does this make sense? Because we know Zelda is the goddess Hylia in that game. Reincarnated, her energy's passed down, however it works as far as, Zelda canon goes. But I would like to see that moment where maybe the goddess is defeated and she passes down her power. Because, we sort of got an explanation with Demise, right? That his anger, his rage is going to carry on for generations, and that there's always going to be a resurrection of a hero and a resurrection of the goddess. He'll always be there to stop the goddess. His rage will always be there. That's the reason why Zelda always gets involved. And because of it, there's always going to be interference. There's always going to be a hero who steps up. I mean, just pure and simple. That's the whole story. That's the reason why it's called The Legend of Zelda. But at the same time, I think it'd be interesting to sort of see this idea of like just a normal person, no legacy behind them, because in Wind Waker we've seen them talk about this is the clothes that the heroes wear. it'd be nice to have a game in which it's just you're playing as some random hero. Maybe you're just going up on some kind of normal job, whatever, and then suddenly the goddess Hylia calls you and you get caught up in the middle of the story. I don't know, it's probably just me. There's no need to really make that. That's the reason why it's the bottom of my list, but I do think it would probably still be an interesting game to sort of see a prequel event as to why. But again, Skyward Sword already explains that, so there's not really much of a need for that. That's why something that I like more is the idea of a super futuristic Zelda. But I don't think that's going to happen, because while we've gotten hints of technology, right? We've seen it in Skyward Sword with the constructs, little robots that come out and sort of help guide you. We've seen Sheikah technology show up in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. We've seen technology show up before. I mean, Twilight Princess had that little twirly gear, whatever the heck they called it. We've seen little hints of technology here and there, but never anything that's been full-blown. Now, I know that that's not as likely because, again, Zelda's kind of focused more on being a high fantasy game that uses swords and dungeons and stuff. But just imagine if maybe in, like, let's just say, for example, Tears of the Kingdom, when Link loses his arm, he gets it replaced with a robotic arm instead, that maybe can then have something come up and shoot a laser, and you use that to solve light-based bouncing puzzles instead of having to use a light shield. Just small stuff like that, where you're just using more technologically based items to solve puzzles. And this could be, again, deep underground, deeper than we've gone underground before in Hyrule. It really depends upon how they want to spin the story. It could be so far into the future, because we've seen hints of it, right? Like we've gotten the Guardians, we've gotten the constructs, we've seen it before. So it's possible that it could happen, although I think that it's probably less likely due to the setting that Zelda is in. I still think it would probably be interesting to do a multiplayer Zelda. Just because some games like Triforce Heroes and Four Swords have been very interesting in their own right. But I understand that that's a little bit harder to do unless you just make it maybe a free-to-play. That's just a real quick, like, almost like a Tetris 99 kind of situation, where it's just, you play and you do these random puzzles that maybe update every week or something. I don't know how they want to do it. But my last idea, I think, is probably the best idea to use for a Zelda game, and also probably something that's not going to be likely either, just because it seems too crazy to work in some ways. And that's the whole idea that I've sort of been getting from games like Plucky Squire, Mario Odyssey, and even to an extent Linked Between Worlds. This idea of switching between 3D and 2D, right? This idea of, not being in a painting or anything like that, not going into walls, but maybe going into the ground and there's a whole 2D world down there, right? Or just something along those lines. But what's going to make it more interesting, and I think the reason why it should work, is because when he goes into the ground, it becomes a top-down Zelda. Kind of like the old school Zeldas, like Zelda 1, right? So you get these older 8-bit Zelda kind of looking games and puzzles and dungeons and stuff, but you also get some of the classic 3D Zeldas that we've been used to. And I think what's going to make it the most interesting is that this needs to be a multi-timeline jumping, time-traveling adventure, basically. Similar to what we've gotten before with other games. They've sort of fiddled around with the idea of time, Ocarina of Time, letting you jump between, different periods in time. Majora's Mask, of course, repeating the same day. Oracle of Ages and Seasons, basically within the same world, but jumping ahead either seasons or, a few years. But different, because this can be something where maybe you can see, like, the Skull Kid, for an example. Or you could maybe see a Link in the background if you're in a certain timeline. But you're not interfering with it, but somehow your adventure is involving it. Like a time-traveling agent is out to maybe destroy the original Link, for an example, in Skyward Sword, like we talked about. And so they go back to try to defeat that Link, and you actually end up stopping that agent, and they just keep jumping. So this gives them the time to play around with different art styles, to again do difference between, like, top-down Zeldas and 3D Zelda format. And I just think it'd be interesting to just sort of play this whole idea of almost like a Back to the Future like thing, where you are sort of running into yourself, but also avoiding yourself. And who knows, there might even be wacky little items, like you get the 4 sword and you split into 4, and now you have to solve a puzzle by, jumping between your 4 different variants and pushing stuff in various spots and stuff. Maybe it's just me. I kind of like that idea. I think it'd be cool. And I know that I'm probably being a little bit deliberately vague with it because I don't want to give too many ideas. But it feels like it's the best idea, at least in my book. But again, I'm probably just crazy. Those are just a few ideas that I have for future Zelda games. Do you guys have any that you would like to see? Because at the end of the day, they've done a lot with Zelda, and who knows what they're going to do going forward, especially with the idea if they're going to get bigger and bigger. And I think this is going to be the final point for that whole time-traveling timeline one, is it can sort of be a retcon. It can be something where it's like this Link goes back and fixes the timeline or something and makes it all single again. Because we know that, there's a point in which, at least according to Nintendo, there's a point in which all the timelines come back together for Breath of the Wild. This could be that adventure that somehow links them all together again. No pun intended, of course, because links. But yeah, that's all that I got. I'm probably just crazy, but I wanted to make a real quick video, get this out there on the internet, just to sort of throw these ideas so they stop bugging me. And if anybody listens or even cares, that's cool. And if not, then that's fine too. But I hope that you did enjoy this video. Feel free to leave a thumbs up, leave a comment, whatever you want to do. No pressure from me. You know how it is. And hopefully I won't take so long between videos going forward, but I will see you in the next video regardless. Have a good one.